Now it's my great pleasure to introduce two key members of our research team at the ARF, Dr. Horst Stipp and Dr. Manuel Garcia-Garcia. Especially when I arrived at the ARF 3 years ago, Horst had this compendium of neuroscience work, and we've been able to, over the last few years, bring that out to the industry, and it's being built on by others, as I mentioned earlier, David Poltrak, among others. And Horst is he's just a remarkable leader and such an important and impressive person to be able to spend time with at the ARF. He was at NBC for over 42 years in media research. He's been at the ARF now for 5 years. It's been such a great delight to work with him. He has his Ph.D. from Columbia. He leads both the neuroscience work that we do as well as our global initiatives. And Manuel has newly joined the group, and he is educated from the University of Barcelona. He worked at Nielsen. He is also an adjunct professor at NYU Stern, and he has his doctorate, and he received a Distinguished Doctorate Award in addition when he received his doctorate from the University of Barcelona. So they're here, as I said earlier, to unpack the latest in sequencing, and not just what you should be spending your money on across platforms, but how. So please join me in a warm round of applause for Horst and Manuel.
Thank you, Gail, and good morning, everybody. I'm just going to briefly introduce Manuel, who's going to do the heavy lifting on our new data. I just want to remind you that only 3 months ago, we were on the stage here unveiling the first part of the ground truth from our How Advertising Works project. And at the time, we made the point that this was really a very special study for 3 reasons. Number one, it's the scope of the study. And you really have to go back like 25 years to find another study about how advertising works of the same scope. Secondly, we made a special effort, and I think we delivered, on providing insights that are really actionable, that you can use, and when you use them, you make your advertising more effective. And third, as Gail already mentioned, we employed new methodologies for the study, namely methods based on neuroscience insights that really were able to give us new insights, the kind of insights that marketers 20 years ago could only sort of speculate about. Namely, how advertising affects emotions and how these emotions really are a key factor in building brands. Now, we at the ARF had done a study on how before we did How Advertising Works that Gail just mentioned. One of the projects was Neuro 2, we call it Neuro 2, and it showed for the first time that neuroscience methods can indeed identify the creative and the creative elements that will sell more. Since then, at Rethink, we saw a study that confirmed those findings, and later at this conference, we will hear another new study confirming those findings. So we are really, really confident that the research findings that you're going to hear from Manuel are based on very, very solid data and really will help you to make your advertising more effective. Now, before Manuel gets on the stage, I just want to make clear that these data that he's going to present are building on those insights from the first part of our How Advertising Works study. And Manuel, just as Gail did earlier, will briefly summarize those. Still, if you did not attend Rethink, and if you are not familiar with the How Advertising Works project, I really urge you that you come up to us, talk to us, or anybody else on the ARF and say, how can I get more information? How can I learn more about this project? In the 5 years that I've been here, as Gail just said, this project has generated more interest and more positive response than any other project. So I can absolutely promise you that it's worth your time, and you will find these data to be very, very important to help you make advertising more effective, your advertising more effective, and gain new insights and stimulate your thinking about moving forward and growing your brand. So with those remarks, it's my real pleasure now to introduce Dr. Manuel Garcia-Garcia, who will take you through this new data.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Audience Measurement 2016. We're really, really happy to be here and bring you a follow-up on more new insights on how advertising works. As Horst was pointing out, a couple of months ago, we brought to the industry, on the hand of our project, How Advertising Works, some new insights on the neural pathways to great creative. So back then, we found out that building advertisement across platform, that builds brands in the consumer's brain much better than doing so in one single platform. But that for that to actually happen, for that to work out, these campaigns need to be unified, need to be using a unified theme, a unified message across all the different platforms. But then we also saw that there's a huge opportunity to amplify your consumers' engagement if you customize your creative and your execution to the platform. Instead of developing a creative that's fantastic for TV and it's tested for TV and then just repurposed it all across without taking into account behavior around the platform, screen size, et cetera, et cetera. So as I said, we saw that advertising just on 2 platforms is better than in 1 platform. In our original experiment, we saw that when we exposed participants to ads for the same brand, once on TV and once on mobile, both purchasing intent and recall, they were higher by at least 30% as compared to when they were exposed to those ads just twice on TV, just increasing the frequency on TV. And it was very consistent with other results that we found in the more return of investment across platform-centric piece of research that my colleague Jasper Snyder presented at Rethink. They showed that if you're adding digital to TV, you find that kicker effect that Gail mentioned before that increases your return of investment in 60%. But again, for that kicker effect to happen, the campaigns need to be unified. Again, unified message and unified theme. So we also saw that when we did this other original experiment, when we measured memory, actually looking directly at the brain of the consumer. So what we saw, we had them seeing a show with ads on TV, and then like 30 minutes later, a show with ads on radio. And the ads were for the same brands. But in some case, in the case 1 and 2 on your screen, right now, those campaigns were not unified for TV and for radio. And then what we saw is that memory, when they were exposed to that on radio, was even lower than when they had seen that same brand just 30 minutes before. But when the campaigns, when the message was unified, you were reinforcing the same message on TV and then on radio. And then memory was building up, even up to 95%. That's how important it is to have a unified campaign. And then it's also very important because we saw that if you follow this roadmap to success, unified creative strategy, and customized execution, that leads to 57% more impact, and that impact translates into sales. So that's 57% is a lot. And that's a great opportunity. And it's a big opportunity because today, only 38% of campaigns are actually following this roadmap. So there's still like 62% of campaigns that do not follow that. So you can see 18% of campaigns that are not unified, but also 44% of campaigns that are unified, but actually developing a creative for TV and just repurposing everywhere else, which is not the most optimal way of doing so. So we came to the industry a couple of months ago with those findings. As Horst said, they were like really well received. It's been fantastic. And then, as always, we keep talking to the industry leaders. We keep talking to all of you. And these are some of the issues, some of the main C-suite challenges that came up. First, like, what is the optimal sequencing across platform? What's the best order to convey my message? Should I start with TV? Should I not start with TV? And then also, we have to customize the execution to the platform, as we know. But how do we actually execute that? So I'm going to start with the sequencing. Something we saw that if you're part of that 62% that is not following our roadmap, and your creative is developed for TV and just repurposed for other platforms, like for instance mobile, we recommend you to start with TV. Because if you do it the other way around, with purchase intent and recall might go down by 25%. But then we also measured engagement through the skin conductance response. And then we saw that if you have your repurposed ad on mobile followed by TV, engagement on TV decreases substantially, even 3 times lower than if you had seen that ad on TV for the first time. Then also, again, within that 62%, if your cross-platform campaign is non-unified, if you're building your campaign in silos, different agencies and different strategies for TV and for radio and for mobile, we also recommend you to start with TV. Because if you do it the other way around, brand consideration might go down in about 50%, which is a lot. This might be because the TV higher awareness might make it work for other platforms, but what's clear is that in any case, a unified campaign is going to work out better. But then, if you actually follow a roadmap and you customize your execution, mobile first can be very, very effective if you are actually customizing the execution to mobile. So we actually saw that customized execution on mobile preceding TV leads to almost twice as much memory as if you're using a repurposed ad on mobile. And then if your campaign is unified, as we actually recommend you to do, we've seen that TV preceded by a different platform can actually be very, very effective and show higher brand consideration. And an example of that would be introducing your product, let's say in digital, on radio, out of home, and then using your TV to develop the product benefit and create more interest or give more information. And I'm going to give you an example of that. In this one case from Edgewell, they use a unified campaign that started with out-of-home posters to launch this new razor that's called Hydro 5. So here you can see, this happened in Germany. Here you can see the razor. The whole unified campaign, the theme is about hydration. So you see the razor coming out of the water. Consumers already said that this light on these posters was very effective in evoking positivity and interest in the new product. And in fact, when we looked at the data and compare their data with a competitor that was at the same time launching a similar product, their parent brand, Wilkinson Sword, had higher reach and higher positivity. So that worked out well, but then they continued launching the TV ad. And as you can see, the TV ad, still about water, still a lot of water, it's still all about hydration, but also talks about the moist and the benefit of the product. And that led to higher purchase intent, especially when they added these two taglines at the end that talk about how cheap the product was. See here, they're talking about the product benefit. So that worked out pretty well, but also then they added digital to it. And then you see that kicker effect. And if you look at the banner, it's also the razor coming out of the water. It's still unified. It's the same thing, same topic. And brand consideration went up 3 times as like before adding digital. So what we saw here is that the creative strategy is absolutely the key to optimizing impact. And as we just saw in this example, in a unified campaign, TV preceded by a different platform, out of home, digital, radio, can be really, really effective. And mobile first can also be very successful if the execution is customized to the platform, to mobile. But then still, if you're not there yet, and you're not following this roadmap of unified creative strategy and customized execution, we recommend you might want to start with TV when the creative is repurposed for a different platform or when the campaign is not unified. So now that we've established that the creative strategy is so important, let's move on to how do we optimize the execution to digital and to mobile. And I'm gonna talk about a few insights. We have a lot more, and there's a lot more to come that we're very excited about. But let's talk about banner ads. We all know that the main challenge of a banner ad is, first of all, to be noticed. They are rarely viewed, and in fact, we've seen in our research that they get 15 times less visual attention than a video. And that's really sad. There's a lot of effort and a lot of money put in that banner ad, and no one sees it. But I'm going to tell you, not everything is lost. There's an opportunity. And here's the opportunity to increase visual attention. You can increase visual attention by 25%, which is already a lot more, if you actually place that ad in a context that's relevant. We know contextual relevance and personal relevance is really, really important. So that data you're seeing here is eye tracking. So that's where people are looking at. Obviously, they are reading the article because they went to the article to read the article, not to see the ads. But the article is about holiday shopping, and the ad is of retail shop. So that's relevant to them, and as you can see, they get to read it. And that's already a first step to get somewhere. You're being noticed, great, success. And then how do we get them more engaged? So we've seen that engagement with the banner ad can increase by 60% when it's customized from a TV creative that they've seen before. They've seen the ad, and again, the theme is the same. They see it, they notice it faster, and the engagement is higher. And this is consistent with the brand immersion model theory of Dr. Karl Marcy and his colleagues that say that online ads actually require that the association with the brand has already been established. So then you notice it, and then you get higher engagement. So here's some of the trick. So now I want to talk to you related to this. Some creative strategies that are very similar to the insights that I was bringing to you that Facebook used. So they use this creative strategy called priming and reminding storytelling, in which, for the same brand and in a unified way, first they place a video there. And in the video, they're introducing the product, they're explaining the benefits, and then later, they place a banner ad. That is the call to action. And that leads to much greater effectiveness than a direct response banner ad. And then they also have this other creative strategy that's called the funnel-based approach. So there they use 3 different banner ads. In the first one, they're setting up the stage. They're introducing the product. The second one is the tease, and that's where they explain the product benefit. And then the third one is the hook, and that's where they call you to take some action. And that's been seen to lead to 49% more efficacy than a direct response banner. So these are some examples. And then as we were talking about yesterday, during the workshop yesterday afternoon, another big problem is that people are installing ad blockers. And people are installing ad blockers because they don't see an informational value in advertising, because it's not relevant to them. And also because consumer experience is not being in the front line here, because you're interrupting the consumer experience by throwing ads there that are popping up, and people don't like that. So then we need to find creative solutions that actually provide value and definitely do not interrupt the experience. So for instance, branded content has seemed to be very effective for building implicit associations, but also native ads, at least they show twice as much visual attention as a banner ad, and in low frequency, also much higher return of investment. So this could be a possibility to avoid interruption in your digital advertising. So I'm going to wrap it up for a second here. What's obvious from all I've talked about today is that platform should not determine this strategy, but the strategy should determine the platform. And also that there's an opportunity to make your banner ad first noticed and then more engaged through contextual relevance and also through creative strategy. And then it's very important that put the consumer experience in the front line and avoid interruption, because the creative strategy is the absolutely key to optimizing impact. Thank you very much. So now, before we go to the break, I would like to ask you something. Yesterday morning, all of us, all people from all faith and ethnicity, we all suffered a horrible attack in our freedoms. So I would like to ask you to stand up and stand with me for a moment of silence for all the victims of Orlando. Thank you. Now we can go, I invite you all to go get coffee and network and mingle. And then at 11:15, we have the deep dives on the second floor. Amazing papers, great content, and I'll see you back here at 1:15 for lunch. Thank you very much.